live demo of Intel vPro technology functions within the Kaseya platform. Glad you chose to spend a part of your day with us. And by us, I mean myself. I'm Scott Schaefer. I'm a program manager here at Intel. I've been working on vPro in the channel for service providers, IT providers, and small and mid-sized businesses for about the last 6 years. With me is my partner, Joe Oster. Joe is a senior support engineer at Intel. Joe's been involved with vPro almost since it launched. He's been working on vPro for 8 years. And he's been working with Kaseya pretty closely for about 2 years. So he has close relationships with both Kaseya product management and Kaseya support, and talks with those folks every week, and works with Kaseya customers like yourself pretty much day in and day out. So Joe is a key contact for you. He's going to be the person doing our live demo today. And also, as you'll see in just a minute, you'll have very ready access to Joe if you have questions afterwards, and I'll show you how you get a hold of him. Before we get to the live demo, I want to talk about one tool and one program. The tool is called the Kaseya vPro Navigator. It's an online user's guide. You can see the screenshot here, and it is simply that. It is simply an online user's guide to the vPro functionality within Kaseya. We think it's very useful for a couple of reasons. First is we co-developed this with Kaseya, so it's absolutely Kaseya specific. It's very detailed, but the way that it's arranged, it allows you to find what you need without wading through a 100-page PDF or a 100-page website, for that matter. It's organized in 3 categories. How do I discover vPro PCs within Kaseya? How do I provision those PCs within Kaseya? And then finally, how do I use the vPro functions that are integrated into Kaseya? All of that is covered in the vPro Navigator. It's very, very step-by-step, lots of Kaseya screen captures. We think we've got everything you need and nothing you don't in here, and that it's very easy to find what you need quickly. One nice feature about it is there is an email link at the bottom of every page in the Navigator. Is an email link that goes directly to us, to myself and to Joe, to our desks. So if you have a question that is not answered in the Navigator, hit that link. You'll get to us, and our turnaround time is pretty fast. So it's really a concierge level of tech support for you all as you try to use vPro within Kaseya. So that's the Navigator. It's at this URL you see at the bottom of this slide, and everything we talk about today is pretty easy to find on the website msp.intel.com. It's pretty easy to navigate your way to what you need if you go to that page, but this is the specific URL for the Navigator. So the first thing you should do if you're thinking of using vPro functions within Kaseya is go to the Navigator. And what Joe walks you through in the live demo is going to follow the Navigator pretty closely. So the program I want to tell you about is an opportunity for you if you would like some personal help in your first deployments of vPro. It's called the Kaseya vPro Deployment Program. We've been doing this for a number of years with Kaseya partners. We've done this with something over 80 Kaseya partners like yourself. And it's really a way to just have us come alongside of you and walk you through, step by step, your first deployments of vPro within your customer environment. So it's a structured program, but it's fairly simple. We do it over 4 weeks. We have a weekly meeting, and we're available to you for questions outside of those meetings. But it's really a great way to have all your questions addressed and have us really walk with you side by side. So if you are interested in that, who qualifies for that? You need to have at least 500 PCs under management through your Kaseya platform, and you need to have at least 2 customers who have deployed at least one vPro-based system. And the reason for that is what you do in this program, you're going to do on a customer's PC, so you can see how vPro works in your actual production customer environment. So very good program. It's been very successful for us and for the MSPs that have participated. So if you're interested, all you need to do is tell us at this email address, activation@intelmsp.com. Shoot us an email that comes straight to me and just say, Scott, I'm interested in the Kaseya deployment program, and we'll contact you with details. So that's the program. And now the last thing before we get into the demo is just I want to tell you what is vPro in a very, very crisp, short fashion. And the reason we do this is because vPro, it's not new. It's 9 years old. So what we find as we work with people in the channel and with managed service providers is that everybody's heard of it, but a lot of people don't actually know what it is. They know it's from Intel. Supposedly it does something cool for you, but they're not clear on what it is. So here's the nutshell version of what it is, and Joe's going to show you all of this in living color. First of all, it is a hardware-based PC technology. It's not available in servers. It's similar to server management functions, but it's not the same thing that's in servers. It's in PCs only. And it's hardware. It's not software. And it's not only hardware, it is not just the processor. It's the processor, the chipset, the network connection, and the firmware. So it's really the entire motherboard has components that make it a vPro system. And it needs to be a vPro system coming out of the manufacturer's factory. You cannot make it a vPro system after the fact. So luckily, there are many, many models from all the leading manufacturers that can come vPro enabled. And you can find a list of those models, both the current models and the past models, on this page here at this URL. And again, if you just go to msp.intel.com, on the nav bar at the top it says Find a vPro, and it'll take you to this page. I'll show you the breadth of the models that are available with vPro. What vPro does, it's actually pretty simple. It's simple in a couple of ways. One, what it does through Kaseya. So everything that you're going to do, everything that Joe's going to show you in the demo, you do through your Kaseya platform. So there's no other tool to learn. It's a very short learning curve. You still got one pane of glass with your Kaseya platform. So it's very simple in that respect. The second thing is it only does two things for you. Both of those things are very powerful, but it really does two things. One is a remote power up and power down. That's like Wake on LAN, except it's much better, and Joe will explain what's better about it. And the second thing it gives you is a KVM remote control, which is a very, very robust capability that you can't get anywhere else on a hardware basis, and Joe will show you the advantages of that. But ultimately it means that the machine does not even need a functioning operating system to be able to reach the machine and remediate problems. So two powerful capabilities, both running through your Kaseya platform. When you've got those capabilities, it means you can do more remotely, and therefore you can get things done much more efficiently. So both repair activities and maintenance activities will go faster because you can do them remotely, and you can do them when it's convenient to you. And ultimately, it's all about reducing those unwanted desk side visits or service depot drop-offs, and to lower your cost and allow you to get more done in the limited time that you've got to do stuff. So that's vPro in a nutshell. With that, I'm going to pitch it over to Joe. Joe, I'll give you the ball here, and Joe will show you the live demo. Joe, you should have it.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Scott, for the great introduction earlier. As Scott has mentioned, I have been with vPro for quite a while, as well as been working with Kaseya customers and Kaseya customer support staff and developers for the last couple of years. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I do have a lot of knowledge, and I can definitely get you through them. And if I can't, then I always have the resources to contact Kaseya with. So let's talk about what Kaseya can do for you in regards to vPro. In the new version of Kaseya, there's a new tab here, and it's the vPro tab. So it's becoming integrated in the standard install. This is not a paid-for plugin. This comes in the standard install. So the first thing we can do is we can click on the setup and then automated. If you have any devices that the agent has determined are AMT devices, they will be populated in this list. And once you hit the wizard, it'll actually go through the process and ask you about passwords and what proxy you want to use and whatnot. Works really well, and I encourage you to use that. I do want to kind of go into the individual components that the wizard actually does, so I don't bother with this. I want to talk about the individual components. So we're going to start off with a vPro proxy. Basically, when you talk to a vPro client, the vPro client can only talk on its local area network, so you have to use a proxy when you're talking to remote networks. So in this case, we're going to go to our proxy screen. This proxy screen is going to show you which devices I have set up as a proxy, and we can go ahead and configure. So we have, if the proxy, the IP address has to be the external public IP address if you're going to go to like a remote system. I mean a remote network rather. So you just put your public IP in, and then you put your port in, and then you're able to make that connection so long as you take your firewall and do a port forward to the proxy. So it's a two-step process, determining your public and port, as well as setting up your firewall to forward to the correct device. In my network, I do everything local, so I do not actually need a proxy. That's why it's like this. So we will not worry about that at the moment. As you can see, I have two ISOs that I've mounted, and I'll explain that in the next screen. Manage the boot ISOs. What this is a list of ISOs that I have the ability to mount to any of the proxies. This is not specific to location or anything else. This is just what's available. I can add an ISO or remove an ISO. As you saw a moment ago when I was in the configure screen, those two ISOs that were in the manage are actually here. Both of those are checked. What that means is they have been downloaded to the actual proxy and are available for that proxy to be used. If I were to uncheck it, this ISO would become unavailable on that proxy for use. The detect and activate, this is really our meat and potatoes of getting everything configured. On this page you have a lot of things you can do. If you want to do a detection to determine what stage you are at, you can see that some of these things are currently being going through detection. I wanted to refresh my my database. However, looks like I have a couple devices that were offline, so we're waiting for them to actually become available. And once those do, they'll be either a true or a false. The AMT password and KVM password, these are not normally seen. You can actually go to columns here, and you can enable or disable anything you want. For the purposes I use, I like to have that available, but you can remove those if you want. By default, it looks like this. KVM mode is this admin control mode versus client control mode. I'll be going through configuration in a few minutes. AMT SKU, this will tell you whether it's full AMT manageability. If it does say Intel full AMT manageability, you know it is a vPro device. If it says small business advantage, then it's a SPA system, which is has a version of AMT, and then there's also standard manageability, which is also a version of AMT, but neither of those versions have the ability for KVM. So if you do see something that comes up with anything other than full AMT, you know it will not have KVM capabilities. In this case, you can also see that these have an associated vPro proxy. If I wanted to change proxy or add a proxy, I just go and manually assign, and I can clear the current selected value. And if I wanted to, I can actually add it. So that's what we can do here. We can also do enabling and disabling of vPro. Enabling vPro is also called configuration. What we do is host-based configuration. Basically, Kaseya will send a couple files down to the client, run it locally through the Windows operating system, configuring the firmware for out-of-band communication. Disable vPro is just an unconfiguration. Basically, it's wiping the profile from the firmware, stopping any out-of-band communication. Alerts, you can generate alerts all you want. These are agent-based alerts. These are not vPro-based. However, this software can feedback some alerts. So you can set yours and do whatever you want with them in there. All right, vPro Actions. Now this is where we're really going to start having fun. On this one, I want to make sure you are aware on the Run Now, there is a Windows shutdown. Please be aware Windows shutdown is not a vPro command. It is a agent-based command. So if you do a Windows shutdown and you can't power things up on a first-time try, well, it's probably because you use Windows shutdown and there's something going on. So the one thing to keep in mind, though, is the force power down is great for when you're just doing some practice or whatnot, but keep in mind that it is just like pulling the power cord. You may end up with some OS errors if you do that. So if possible, do use the Windows shutdown, unless, of course, you need it, which should be like in blue screen situation or you've booted to an ISO or what have you. You do have the capability of using the force power down without a problem. I use it all the time. Very rarely do I have really encounter an issue, but with having to do like a drive scan or something similar. And then of course you have your power up. Okay, now when we talk about remote control with vPro devices, we can actually do a remote control session, which is basically opening a KVM. This is just like any other VNC, RDP, TeamViewer, what have you, or whatever. I hope if I can type. Whatever method you want to use. Very similar. But the difference is I don't have to have a server agent on here allowing me to have access. This is directly to the firmware. All this is doing is scraping the video output and presenting it over the web to my admin box that you're currently seeing. So say this thing is blue screened. It's really nice because I can go into this screen. I don't have to rely on the end user reading me that big, long, ugly code. I can actually go in and look at that code myself and be able to determine what it is through some sort of search on the web. Very nice, very handy. There's other reasons you could do it. Say somebody's going, oh, my screen is doing this funny thing. Well, here you go. You can go take a look and see exactly what they're talking about, all without having to use some sort of paid subscription to whatever viewer. So pretty handy. The other thing we can do with Kaseya is we can actually boot the system to the BIOS if you want. And you do that literally by just clicking boot to BIOS. And here in about a minute to 2 minutes, it'll actually shut down and go back to the BIOS. Go to the BIOS. I'll show that to you in just a moment. While we're waiting for that to occur, I wanted to talk about boot from ISO. Boot from ISO, basically you're just going to click on this and it's going to give you one of the options that we were showing you earlier. This can take up to 4 minutes to proceed, so this is not, I won't go through all the steps on that, but quite literally boot to ISO, choose your ISO, and you're good to go. Really cool because with these different ISOs, you can, anything that you normally would do to a hard drive locally, you can do remotely now. Say somebody has a virus, you want to take that drive out, scan it in a docking station. No problem. I can boot it to a Linux ISO, mount like a iSCSI connection to it, and then I can just scan it as if it was local. That use case would be called remote drive mount, and that is available from Intel as a standalone ISO on our use case reference design site. Other things you can do with it, virus remediation, same thing, boot it to some sort of antivirus ISO, do disk checks, you know, any kind of ISO you want, you can actually boot it to it, as long as it's a bootable ISO. Let's see if that has accomplished what I want. Yep, during the process of me talking, it actually did it. So I am now here in the BIOS, and I have full access to this. You know, one of the things I like about this is every once in a while I get a user who has left a thumb drive in a system and it will not boot because it's getting hung up at the boot in the boot stage because of that darn USB key. Well, I can actually change my boot sequence so that I remove that from my path, and then I can bypass the USB key and boot to the OS and do whatever I need. So that's a very good reason why you would want to have this. I have no changes I need to make, so I will get out of this and exit. So we are completely done with that. So that's my demonstration for now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, one last thing. I wanted to show you about the Navigator and also discuss configuration. My apologies. So Navigator is going to go through all the steps and everything that I've gone through in this presentation. This presentation, you just go into the Discover, go down here to the different tabs on the side, and it will go through everything we've already discussed. The beauty of this is actually FAQs. All three of these sections have FAQs. These are all based on questions people such as yourself have already asked. Just go in here and take a look. The other thing is, right down here at the bottom, there is a Intel, what is it? Navigator Help KA at intelmsp.com. That's the email address I'll get directly to Scott and myself. So the last thing to talk about is configuration. As I told you, Kaseya can do it in a host-based configuration methodology, which is fine. However, there is another one. Host-based will leave it in client control mode. The difference between client control mode and the admin control mode is that with admin control mode, you do not have to have user consent for any redirection operations. KVM is a redirection activity, so you will need to have user consent. What that does is that it enables a 6-digit code on the client screen that is not remotely viewable. That 6-digit code has to be read off to the technician so he can put it into his console. All my demonstrations with the KVM have been in admin control mode today. In order to do admin control mode, there's 3 basic ways. There's manually, literally going into the firmware, which is as you boot the system, you can hit Control P, which is kind of hard to do because you have to hit it inside of a specific window, or you can hit normally a F12, which goes into a one-time boot menu. Some OEMs and some BIOSes use different keys, but try to go into your one-time boot menu, and in that process you'll see a Control P or some other version to go into the AMT firmware. Once you get into there, you can configure it. Number 2 is actually literally use a USB key that you create a small file on. You stick that into your machine, boot it, and it'll ask, do you want to configure your device? And you say yes, and then you hit spacebar and you are done, totally configured. Now obviously those are manual processes. Some of you may want to have a remote option. In order to do that, it takes certificates and a certificate server. There are some certain requirements that will be required for that operation. Number 1, you have to purchase the certificate from a third-party vendor such as GoDaddy or Komodo. There's several of them out there that can do it. Once you purchase that certificate, you need to spin yourself up a server, and the option 15 in your DHCP needs to be the same domain name as your certificate. The hitch here is anybody who's using like doctor.local, that is a non-registrable domain name. So currently you will not be able to purchase that as a certificate. If you have like doctor.com or intel.com or something like that that you own, those are registrable and you will be able to get the certificate in order to do that. And that pretty much concludes my demonstration. Scott? Scott.
All right, Joe. Thanks. Let me take the ball back and just give everybody a couple of reminders as we wrap up. The first is, again, on the vPro Navigator, that is your key tool for how to use vPro within Kaseya, as Joe mentioned. Please be sure and check that out. And the second reminder is about our program, our Kaseya vPro deployment program. If you're interested, just send us an email at activation@intelmsp.com, and we'll get back to you with details. I want to thank everyone for your time today. Hope it was useful, and hope that we'll be able to answer any questions you've got through the Navigator. Thanks again, everyone.